Live from the hippest spot online, you've arrived at the Pop Culture Juke Joint, the only weekly podcast you'll need for intelligent showbiz chats. Located just up the street from the Peach Pit and down that dark, damp alley behind Fonzie's Garage, you'll find former newsman and current hard-boiled crime writer Anthony Venutolo, chatting with guests about everything from old school classics to new school staples. So head up to the bar, grab a drink, and settle in here at the Pop Culture Juke Joint. Now, your host, Anthony Venutolo.
Welcome to another episode of the Pop Culture Juke Joint, where each week we take a deep dive into one particular aspect of pop culture, be it TV, books, music, comics, media, you name it. This week, we want you to grab a booth at the Double R, offer up a slide of cherry pie, and prepare to dream about a damn fine cup of coffee, because you know what we're going to talk about? Twin Peaks. I'll be first to admit I do not watch Twin Peaks. I've never watched Twin Peaks. That's not to say I wouldn't enjoy it. I never got around to doing it. But you know what? Jack Lugo did. And this week he brought along his bud Zachary Towlen, and they're going to try to make some sense as to what happened throughout this new season of Twin Peaks. All 18 hours of it. They discussed the unsettling finale. They also discussed whether David Lynch's attempt to bring arthouse cinema to TV was worth it. Did it take too long to see beloved fan favorite character Dale Cooper? And what was going on with that giant tea kettle? And of course they explained the David Bowie aspect of that all. So you know what? Grab your drink, sit back, relax, enter the juke joint.
To the Pop Culture Juke Joint. Today we have a very special episode. We are going to be talking Twin Peaks. Now, my regular co-host Anthony Venutolo doesn't watch Twin Peaks, but we have a special guest with us today, Zachary Towlen. He's an aspiring filmmaker and a good friend of mine, and he actually got me into Twin Peaks. Say hi, Zach.
Hello, everyone.
So, Zach, we're going to take a deep dive into Twin Peaks, and I'm sure, we've both been dying to discuss this with each other because we haven't spoken in a while. So, how did you feel prior to going to the finale? And by the way, we're going to be discussing spoilers, so if you haven't watched the series finale, Twin Peaks, we're going to be discussing spoilers, so just so you know. So how did you feel about this revival before tuning in on Sunday night?
I think there were a lot of really great things that were going on in the revival. I think David Lynch, as he had said in an interview, that it was an opportunity for him to bring back kind of art house cinema. And he really got to play around with an experimental film elements for this revival. My only, complaint would be is sometimes I felt that they were stalling for a bit. I don't know if you agree with that.
I think there are several times that we both felt frustrated. I could think of let's talk about some specific things. Let's talk about how long it took for Cooper to wake up and to stop being Dougie. Now, I actually grew to like Dougie. I grew fond of him. I think Naomi Watts was incredible as JDE.
She was terrific.
she was great, wasn't she? Towards the end, I kind of grew fond of Dougie, but I know a lot of fans were really banging their heads against the wall. When are we going to see the Coop that we grew to love in the original series? Did you feel that way too?
No, I felt that way. And then I also thought, well, David Lynch, when Twin Peaks first came out, it really changed the way that television was going. It influenced, that Twin Peaks influenced The Sopranos and any other, 6 Feet Under, all these shows that came later on cable-based network. And they, what I just think is so... I'm sorry, I lost my point, Jack. Hold on.
That's okay.
Hold on. Oh, okay. So David Lynch had, reinvented television once when Twin Peaks originally aired in the early 90s. I think he tried to do it again. And by this time, we're expecting, okay, a couple episodes he's going to be Dougie and he'll wake up and he'll be Coop and this and that. But it went on so long that we didn't know when it was going to happen. So it was almost great when he actually did wake up and then Mike went, Finally,
and that was like speaking for the audience. I felt like finally. I think you and I were kind of going back and forth because I actually, there was a part of me that thought he wasn't going to wake up until like the last few minutes of the very last episode of the finale. I know you would have hated if that happened.
Oh yeah.
I know a lot of fans would have been completely driven over the edge by that, but it would seem like a Lynchian thing to do, to sort of defy the expectations. But I don't think that Lynch was necessarily like trolling the fans who wanted to see the original Twin Peaks. He was just trying to do something different. And in an age where like the revival and the reboot has gotten tired and everything gets rebooted. And when we watch whatever it is, it's, you always look for those callbacks or those kind of nostalgia things. And Lynch delivered a few of those, but he really made sure that he delivered something new and original. And, that's what I have to kind of give him kudos for it. Because there were times I was frustrated. I mean, I was even frustrated up to the very end, but I kept with it because I felt like, he could have taken the easy way out. He could have, like you said, brought Dougie, had Coop be Dougie for 3 episodes and then have the original, have him wake up and then go back to Twin Peaks and just give us what we wanted. But he actually went with a vision that I don't think anyone could have anticipated. No one could have predicted how this season was going to unfold. One of the other things that he kind of kept us waiting for was Audrey. I mean, I think Audrey, might be one of your favorite characters from the original. And Sherilyn Finn had done a lot of press going into this new season, and we kind of expected that Audrey would be a big part of the season, and in an odd way, like the last few episodes that featured her, you were kind of, it was very intriguing, but we didn't get like a whole character arc like we got for some of the other characters and some of the new characters that he introduced. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I was just going to ask you what your thoughts on that were, but it's just, I don't know if David Lynch is trying to set up for a new season. I don't really think there's enough, material for them to make a whole new season. But I don't know. Yeah, Audrey, it was pieced in towards the end of the return, the run of it, and
she didn't come in until episode 12.
Yeah, and then it has this. The cinematography is a little different. The staging is very different in the way the Audrey scenes are. And then when she has, her reveal of being in that white room, whatever that is, I thought it was a hospital, or she's kind of trapped in between.
It seemed kind of like either a futuristic setting or some kind of like sci-fi inspired universe. And then, both you and I have actually met Clark Middleton, who plays Charlie, her husband. And obviously, we couldn't, he didn't discuss the details because this was before any of his scenes were aired. But he did say it was wonderful working with Lynch. But I was kind of surprised that those scenes were filmed differently. She was having these kind of arguments with him, whether or not to leave, and about Billy. There's this, we don't know who Billy is that she was.
It kind of was just going around in a circle. There was a point where when she showed up for her second time and she was having a similar argument with him, you just were like, I've seen this already. Where is this going? And Kyle MacLachlan said that he kept saying to everyone, don't worry, it'll all make sense in the end. But that's the one part that doesn't really make sense, is the Audrey part. And I don't know why, if you had this opportunity to get all the cast back and get most of the cast back and get the money to really give the show a send-off. And it just seems like, I don't know, did that did he feel obligated to put her in? So they kind of made this subplot that didn't really have a payoff. I don't know.
Or is she a part of the puzzle that we just haven't figured out, and that maybe would pay off if we get more Twin Peaks in the future? I don't know, because the thing is, that whole, like, their scenes together just felt very different from the rest of the series. I mean, obviously the series, it's not like anything else on TV, so to say it feels different might be doing it a bit of an injustice. But it felt like a play, like a one-act play. That's the way it looked. Before they get to the Roadhouse, all those scenes that they did together,
which looked also, sorry to interrupt, but they kind of looked pieced in, or like shot very close together. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
When usually in film, if there's not a lot of coverage, you can kind of tell, like, okay, like, and at first I thought maybe it was just on the, towards the end of production, they didn't get it, but it just seemed like they were all shot in a similar manner very quickly. Like, I mean, she didn't really have a close-up, and maybe he was saving the close-up for when it was her dance, and then when she had the wake-up reveal in the mirror.
That could be it, because I mean there are a lot of things going on in those scenes, like that fans have pointed out. The very first time you see them, she goes something like, "You don't have a crystal ball," and obviously there's a crystal ball right in front of his desk. And their dialogue just seems, just like it's leading to something, but you don't know quite what it is. And when we do get to the Roadhouse, which would have been episode 15, and you have that, she has that moment, that dance, that did feel surreal and incredible. I was kind of like overjoyed to see that. And then you have the shocking way that it ends, like with her in front of this mirror dressed in white, and it looks like she's in some kind of gown, some kind of institutional gown, but it looks kind of futuristic. It doesn't look like it's like a regular, because one of the popular fan theories is that she's been in a coma all this time. Do you think maybe that, because I know there's so much about dreams in Twin Peaks, that maybe Lynch is making her kind of the dreamer of parts of Twin Peaks, or all of Twin Peaks, or maybe just the Roadhouse segments? I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you think about like what you just said with how it's about dreams, I think the show is also about nightmares too.
Yeah.
And it was, I feel like that gave us to show Audrey was kind of in a dream, and then in the end she's really in a nightmare. Thus, then going into episode 17, which kind of was like a big payoff, like it was, Mr. C, Bad Coop is down, all the Twin Peaks people are in like the room together.
Yeah. And
then he goes to save Laura, and it starts to like work, and then it goes into this whole, we'll get to that in a little bit about episode 18, but it essentially turns into a nightmare. And I don't know, there's just so many things about the Audrey sequence, we'll say, of this revival that I just don't know what he was going for.
It kind of begs the question, because we also had the dream sequence with Gordon Cole and Isabella. I was going to say Isabella Whistlebeam. No, what's her name?
Monica Cello.
Yeah,
as he
Monica
says,
Bellucci.
Bellucci.
Yeah.
He goes, I had another Monica Bellucci dream.
Yeah, don't we all? I mean, if I'd announced it every time, I don't know, I'd probably get kicked out.
Actually, weird thing was they went to Paris to shoot that.
Really?
Because there were rumors that Kyle MacLachlan and David Lynch were spotted in Paris filming. So they actually went to Paris to film that little segment.
And that was like maybe 5 minutes of screen time. That's. But in that scene, you hear her say, who is doing something about who is doing the dreaming. Like life, we all live inside of a dream, and it begs the question of if that's true, then who is the dreamer? So one of my theories, and some of the theories I've seen online as well, is that maybe Audrey is the dreamer. It's possible. Obviously, I can't say, neither one of us can say.
You're saying, like, in this sense, like, she's the dreamer that's dreaming that Coop is the hero that saves Laura. Like, she's dreaming the whole revival, or just her stuff?
She might be dreaming everything. I don't know. I mean, it's weird. Anyway, moving on. I just also wanted to talk about Philip Jeffries a little bit.
The tea kettle.
Yeah. Well, we both were kind of mystified at all the Philip Jeffries references, and he's mentioned quite a lot. Going into before we see him as the tea kettle, and we were both kind of hoping that there was a secret David Bowie cameo, even though I think it had been shot down. I think Harry Goes, who plays Deputy Andy, he had said that they couldn't, they didn't get a David Bowie, that they had written stuff for him, but obviously he had passed away before they could do anything. So, what are your feelings on that?
Well, Jeffries is it's interesting because if you look at they said it from before the season even aired, was that Fire Walk with Me would play such an importance in this new season, and Jeffries in that movie is just kind of pieced in, like you really don't know. He was never introduced or spoken about in the show, so he was this mystery left over from this prequel movie. And I don't know. I mean, I don't really understand the tea kettle itself. I'm a little confused on that. The only thing is, my girlfriend pointed out there's a photo online of Bowie holding in like the '60s, holding a. Maybe what did Lynch just Google David Bowie in the '70s or something and find this photo?
I don't know, but it's I don't know. I was hoping for that David Bowie cameo. We didn't get it, and we ended up getting the tea kettle scene. And he gives Evil Coop coordinates, which are I guess are the same coordinates that he got from Ray. That's the impression that I'm getting.
To be fair, I was a little confused about. I knew there were 3 sets of coordinates,
right,
and that Evil Coop was looking for them, and to find the one that would get him back to the lodge, right? And
yes.
then that transported him to the sheriff's office.
Correct.
But the one, and the other thing is that I also think that, I don't know how you feel about this, but there was so much information presented in each episode, and and Showtime did a great job of on the next Twin Peaks, or there was you never knew what the heck was going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that one episode, I think Kyle MacLachlan's in it for like 2 seconds. I don't know if it's episode 8. There's one episode where he's barely in it.
Oh, and yeah. I think it was episode, because we do see a little bit of Evil Coop in episode 8 when he gets shot by Ray. No, that's after he gets shot by Ray. But yeah, no, it's they didn't do any trailer, they did a general,
which was great, which was another thing that made the whole thing so surprising and exciting, because you just didn't know. Even the episode titles and the descriptions were so vague. But what I think is, I don't know, I feel like I need to rewatch it, because I think I wrote off a lot of what happened in the first probably 4 before, because I was just excited, and I wasn't really, he kept saying it was like an 18-hour movie.
Yeah. And
there were things that happened in the finale that I think they were probably layered in the very beginning, and, like the box. I'm still kind of, what is, the box that the guy is watching, that Coop comes through at one point.
In New York, yeah.
In New York, I thoughts on that?
I think Evil Coop was connected to that in some way. Like maybe he was sponsoring it. Although I don't think that's been confirmed. That's just a theory, or my theory. I think Evil Coop had probably hired him, because I think we're going to talk about the actual finale in a bit, but there's that reference to Judy, obviously, and we are going to talk about Judy. I don't think there's any way to talk about Twin Peaks without talking about Judy now. And I think that entity is Judy, the entity that kills the couple, and the guy and the girl in New York in the first episode. So and then Judy, I think, is now residing in Sarah Palmer, I mean, that's the way that's the way I've interpreted it. So,
well, now with Sarah Palmer, do you think is she the girl that got the bug crawled in her mouth in episode 8? Do you think that's her?
I don't know, because in the original Twin Peaks, there was no indication that I mean, obviously we had Leland. We had Bob inside Leland doing what he was doing, but there was no indication that there was anything else going on with Sarah Palmer. She was obviously a victim in that whole thing. So I don't know.
The only thing is she has visions.
Yeah, she has the white horse. That comes. Yeah, I don't know. So maybe she was the girl, because there were never any names used in that scene. In episode 8 with, so yeah. And then so do you think that was Leland and Sarah, or do you think maybe it was someone else?
I don't know. I mean, I thought maybe it was Leland and Sarah, but then it's too far away from like the Twin Peaks area. I thought, all right, that's a little coincidental that they would, if it was Leland and Sarah, they would be. Was it New Mexico? Or it's just out where those scenes take place.
I think in New Mexico, because of the atomic bomb testing and all that stuff.
So I thought, okay, most likely, if it is a character we already know, most likely then they moved to Twin Peaks. But I don't know if they both would be there and then they moved to Twin Peaks, because I kind of feel like Leland was. I don't know. I always got the vibe he was rooted in Twin Peaks. His family was always there. The Palmer family was always there.
That was my feeling too. But again,
because him and the Horn brothers were so close.
They were, yeah. And I know there is that story.
Can we take a second to just applaud Jerry Horn for?
Yeah, I love those Jerry Horn scenes.
Because when he first showed up, I was like, okay, cool, Jerry's still alive, and then later with him in the woods, like, this is not your foot, and the binoculars, it was great.
And then I guess Ben Horn gets that phone call to tell him that they found his brother, and that I guess he needed clothes because he had somehow gotten naked or something. There was some kind of other than just picking him up, there was something else that, like, either he needed clothes or there was something going on that I didn't quite catch, and I would have to rewatch it again. But yeah, those Jerry Horn scenes were really great. So what do you think about kind of like the vibe of the series? Because before we were leading up to this revival, we were both kind of debating as to whether the vibe would be more like Fire Walk With Me or if it would be more like the original Twin Peaks series. I was kind of hoping for the original Twin Peaks series because I like the quirkiness, and we did get some of that, obviously. But I like, kind of like the eccentrics, the eccentricity of the original series, and not have it be so dark. But this really got dark. I mean, it did have its lighthearted moments. Obviously, we had Dougie, but it really got dark.
Yeah, I think with David Lynch and Mark Frost, they as creative people, they had to make a compromise, and I think David went more down. He wanted to go and exploring the lodge, and I think that Mark Frost wanted to do more of the quirkiness that Twin Peaks was known for. And I feel like this is my own thought, that's where the Dougie stuff kind of originates from. But then David, I mean, there are some parts where they just go down this rabbit hole, and it is, the editing was, the sound design. David Lynch did the sound design. All the credits, he did the sound design for every episode. So all those little pops or the electricity, that was his doing. And I just think that, I just knew when the show was going to start, it was going to be more like Fire Walk With Me, because I could just see that's what he progressed with, David Lynch as a filmmaker, like with Mulholland Drive and his other Inland Empire especially.
Yeah, did you have a chance to watch Inland Empire, by the way?
So I did start Inland Empire. I got, what is it? It's a 3-hour movie.
Yeah,
I got an hour into it. And I realized, one, that the sound is so bad in it because he used the camera, whatever camera he was using, that's where the sound was coming from, like the mic built in, because when it was really close to someone's face, you could hear them very well. but when they were far away, it sounded like, a video I made.
So there was no boom or anything?
Yeah, no, he did it himself.
Wow. Okay, because I still haven't watched it. And some fans have connected. The actress who plays Nato before she turns into Diane, she's in Inland Empire, and she's also connected to Laura Dern's character in Inland Empire. So there is a bit of a connection, and I know we were discussing Audrey before. In the Lynch universe, Mulholland Drive started out as an Audrey Horne vehicle, and he initially had Audrey Horne go off to Hollywood. So there is kind of like an interconnectivity for all of Lynch's work. I mean, even going back to Eraserhead, there's that, I think I sent you the meme or the picture where you see, well, at this point, Coop is Dougie, but he's holding the case files the kind of same way as the character in Eraserhead coming out of the elevator, and you see, it's shot almost exactly, as a callback to that.
I think Lynch is very self-aware of himself and his art, and I think it's almost like a wink at the fans. And I mean, he also was stellar just appearing in the show as Gordon Cole. Like I don't know. I feel like he knows what's good for the fans of Twin Peaks. Like, maybe Mark Frost and him disagree on that, because Mark Frost, I feel like that was why we saw Norma and Ed get together, which was such a great payoff.
That felt really good. I mean, because at first I was like, oh no, please don't, because it looked like she was going to go off with that other guy at one point, and like even in that scene, it looked like she had decided to move on past, and let Ed go. And then you see him at the counter by himself, and then you see her fingers in her hand kind of embrace him. And that was just, that was one of those moments where I was like, yes,
well, it was just great because, they finally got together. And it just showed that people in Twin Peaks can move on. I mean, even a sad part, is also, I'm not sure if it's that scene or another double R scene, is that like you get the vibe like that Bobby still pines for Shelley.
Yeah.
And yet she had whatever, they had a kid together. She's 25 years go by. So she's always into the bad boys. So he became a good guy. He wasn't he wasn't the bad guy that she was attracted to, and she obviously has a streak.
Yeah, and her daughter obviously, falls for a bad guy too. So it's there is that kind of theme going on. With Bobby, you get the sense that like in the finale, I think doesn't Coop tells him that Garland.
You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. Coop tells him that Garland would be proud of him. That he's become a deputy. He's no longer kind of like the juvenile delinquent that he was in the original. That was a good moment with those are some good moments with Bobby. Let's talk a little bit about let's get into the actual finale. When I say the finale, it's let's start with episode 17.
Okay.
We get this kind of exposition from Gordon Cole about Judy, because previously there was this whole mystery of who's Judy. What was Philip Jeffries going on about, not talking about Judy, and then you find out that Judy is this evil entity that Garland Briggs was investigating, and do you think that was kind of like a cheat in a sense?
It's just, I find it very hard to believe you have an opportunity. First, they were going to make 9 episodes of the revival, and then they upped it to 18. And then one of the biggest things that you tack it on at the beginning in this expositional part of the beginning of the finale. It kind of seemed a little cheap and like a cheat. to me as well. And it was because there were so many things set in motion at that point. You were like, Coop had waking up and he was on his way to, back to Twin Peaks, and you're all amped up. And then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, this whole thing is blah, blah, blah. And yeah.
I mean, a great time to discuss that would have been when Albert confessed to Gordon about hearing from Philip Jeffries. That was a few episodes back. Mm-hmm. So
I love the one line in 17 where Gordon says, Philip Jeffries, I don't even know if he exists anymore. Like,
yeah, it just. That was part of that. That's when we say that there's some things that frustrated us. That was one, because it's like you had opportunities to kind of weave that into the story a whole lot better than he did. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about also the showdown with Evil Coop. Evil Coop comes to the sheriff's station at Twin Peaks. He asks to see Sheriff Truman. Obviously, there's this whole confusion. Sheriff Truman is not the Sheriff Truman that he would have known as real Coop. Instead, it's his brother. And what do you think of the fact that it's Lucy who ends up killing Evil Coop? And then we get the whole bomb scene. But I was, were you hoping for some kind of a physical confrontation with the real Coop and the evil Coop that we just didn't get?
I kind of thought it was going to go that way, but then that's the beauty of David Lynch, is that it never goes the way you think. So yes, you're expecting this big fight, but then they ended up, I guess they were like, oh, let's not have two Kyle MacLachlans running around. So let's just do Frank Silva's face on a ball. But now, actually, speaking of that, where Freddy, was he mentioned beforehand to Coop? Because did Coop know who he was?
He was never mentioned to Coop. I mean, we as the audience are familiar with Freddy because we had the scenes with James earlier on, and he explains how he got the glove, and then he also explains that he had met with that he had the visions of the giant, and I'm not sure if there were any other lodge entities that he met that he saw, but he was told that he would have to come to Twin Peaks to fulfill his destiny, and that this glove has magical,
So do you think Coop knows him from when he went to the lodge?
It's possible because, it would have been while Coop was trapped in the lodge for 25 years. When Coop wakes up, he's kind of in episode 16. You kind of get he's aware of everything. He's aware of all the stuff that happened while he was Dougie, and he remembers everything about the lodge, and pretty much he's the old Coop that we all remember. And then it gets a little confusing later on because he doesn't seem like the same Cooper later on when we get to episode 18. But when we talk about that showdown, it's like, okay, so Evil Coop, at first I wasn't even sure that Bob was still in Evil Coop, because in episode 8, when Ray had shot Evil Coop, we saw Bob come out of his chest while the woodsmen were kind of doing their thing. And I thought that maybe the Evil Coop was trying to retrieve Bob in some way, but apparently Bob was there all along. So so now we have this scene where Freddy, Evil Coop has been shot, the woodsmen were kind of doing their thing. Bob comes out of his chest as a bubble blob, and then Coop kind of encourages Freddy. He doesn't do anything, you would think Coop would have a more active role in that scene. Even if it's Freddy who has to actually do the physical punching of the blob, that maybe Coop would do something, but he actually doesn't. He just kind of yells at Freddy to do what he's meant to do. I thought that was kind of funny,
because it was funny, but I think it's off. Even though Coop is very intuitive and smart, he's still just a man, and this is a I don't want to say supernatural, but this is a force of nature, Bob, and it's way more than. That's why he had to go up against Freddy, who has something mystical about him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
it almost, I think, would have given Coop too much credit that he could take down this big force like Bob, because it would be what is, you know, his special thing, that his power, you know, because Laura was represented. Where does Coop fit in? Like, what would he? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what supernatural force or power would he have to bring down a force like Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that sort of makes sense. I mean, I was just a little frustrated with that scene, you know, because, you know, I mean, Freddy could have been killed and Coop is just kind of just standing there. But I also, maybe he just couldn't move, you know, like, because the way that scene is shot, it's very, you know, frantic, and you don't, you know, I guess the characters, I don't know if they're free to kind of move around. Yeah, were you okay with that? That's how Bob meets his demise, or do you think maybe they should have given Bob a better send off?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't know how they would have to end Bob. I think it was a little bit contrived, because you have this character come out of nowhere that has this story, you know, and with this, you know, when he gives the whole story to James, it was literally like, this is, and then you're like, oh, this is going to come up later somehow. This, like, and then he's the one that takes down Bob. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what would have made Bob end. I don't know. I almost feel like I wanted to see Laura take him down. But
yeah, same here. I think that would have been a lot better. But I mean, not to say that we, you know better than David Lynch, but it's just there are parts of, like I said, there are parts of this whole thing that, you know, we love, and then there are parts that we're not so crazy about.
But I do love the fact that we can actually discuss and really makes. I mean, I've been thinking about the finale since I finished it. You know, like it's just been in my head all day, and you know, there really was no other TV experience like that, and you know, and in this climate with television rapidly changing, with how streaming is working and how the cable networks are, and how, you know, it's just, there's so much content out there that, you know, there are shows that people, oh, did you watch Ozark yet, Zach? And I'm like, I haven't. No, I want to. I haven't got a chance to.
Yeah,
but
same here.
But Twin Peaks every Sunday, I was glued. You know, glued to the TV, and because I just didn't know what was to come. I didn't know who was going to show up. You know, like,
especially if you're a fan, if you followed the series, you know, from the beginning. You were, you know, like, we're both kind of young. Like, I didn't watch it originally when in the '90s, but we caught on later on, and you know, I kind of like binged it going into the revival. Let's talk a little bit about Diane. After the showdown with Evil Coop, we see NATO kind of transform into the real Diane, which I thought, you know, like that kind of makes that kind of makes sense. I mean, a lot of things.
Actually, you know, it's funny. You know, what's funny is that how do you say it? NATO? That's how you say it.
I think it's NATO or NATO. It's one of them.
So if you swap out the O for an E, it spells Diane.
It's an anagram for Diane. Yeah.
So, but I think it's funny that the extra E is in Janie.
Janie E. Yeah.
E, because, and that's her.
That's her sister.
Yeah. So it's funny that. But what I think happened, this was my first thought, was that when the real Diane and the real Cooper reunited, I didn't see this as like this love story that was like building between them or anything. I just think it was after 25 years, the two of them, you know, I think they knew, you know, have known each other a long time, worked together, you know, had a, you know, couple romantic interactions, but I saw it. I took it as it wasn't like this romantic. It was more like this intimate and passion-like embrace. But then it just turned on its head when later in episode 18 with the sex scene that went on a little.
Yeah, it was a little uncomfortable. to watch. Yeah. See, I'm not sure what's exactly.
I don't know. Is it because we didn't get it in Blue Velvet when they were in that movie together? We didn't get when Laura Dern and Kyle MacLachlan have a, So I don't know. It to me that felt. But then episode 18, which we could go on about, had a whole different vibe.
It did. It had a whole different, because essentially what happens is Coop, he goes to after he leaves the sheriff's station, and we get this whole segment where we just see Coop's face kind of transposed over the scenes that are happening, and then he calls out to Diane and Gordon Cole, and they go see. They go to, I guess, the door that leads to Philip Jeffries, and I guess Coop goes through the door. Diane and Gordon Cole stay behind, and he sees Philip Jeffries, and I guess does he ask Philip to take him back? He asks Philip to take him back to the night of the Laura Palmer murder, and then we see the scenes from Fire Walk With Me play out,
which I thought was brilliantly done.
Yeah,
with having her looking over James's shoulder, because that scene played originally in one context, like she just kind of was like paranoid and but then having Coop superimposed in the background, I just thought it was even they did a great job too when they had her with the wig on and him, they had her shot from afar and a little bit out of focus, yet she kind of still looked exactly the same.
Yeah, she did. I thought that was brilliantly done. And then essentially what happens is he's trying to lead her to the woods where they found Nato, Diane, Jack Rabbit's pallet, where I'm talking about. So he tries to lead her there, and she disappears. And then we get into episode 18.
So I just want to say, I have to credit this to this. I read the boards on Reddit, and I had sent this to you, and I hope it's very short, but I just want to read this one little passage that somebody wrote, a thought, and I really agree with it. It's from Verhi8173 on Reddit. So they wrote, "He wanted to save Laura, and I think that the powers of the Lodge gave him that chance, but I don't think it was enough. This is how the agents get lost, the Blue Rose agents. Just like Cooper, they get moved to a different... When Sarah Palmer does not live in the house he thought she did. It's very sad, but I accept that I am not owed a conclusion. This is a world with twists and turns and sadness and evil." And then somebody responded, and they said, well, don't you remember Garland Briggs's biggest fear? That I fear that love may not be enough. And it's almost like that Coop kind of had like a love for, finding out what happened, he had a love for Laura. And he couldn't, when he tried, he just went too far. And do you think he erased everything that happened with...
The way I took it is maybe he's in a different timeline. I mean, like maybe, and I guess... I think I think what happens is the Laura Palmer murder doesn't happen, and that timeline goes on. But then I think Diane and him sort of split from that timeline, because you have that scene with them in the car, and they're saying once we're on the other side, we don't know what's going to happen, and so forth. So I think they leave that timeline of Coop, of the Laura Palmer murder. As is, and then he ends up on a different timeline where Laura Palmer is a different person. She's Carrie Page. And maybe, whatever kind of mystical or otherworldly quality that Laura Palmer has, Carrie also has, but I think I think she really is a totally different character, a different person. It's just, this is like an alternate universe.
And I think that there was such despair in his voice when he asked, "What year is it?"
Yeah. Doesn't Philip ask that in Fire Walk With Me? Because there's a confusion with when he in that Gordon Cole scene. He sees the calendar and it's not the year that he expected.
Yeah, because Gordon says you've been missing for damn near 2 years.
Right. So,
and yeah, well, that whole scene with Bowie is, you can watch it a million times and still not understand everything that's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's, yeah, like, I mean, Coop is, it's like he got out in episode 7. But yet it wasn't enough for him. He still needed to complete his mission of what happened to Laura.
Yeah, love wasn't enough. Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, and he went back in, and he screwed.
Yeah,
he might be in tune of what's going on, being able to hop in more than anyone else has hopped in the Black Lodge, but I still think that, like, you know, the powers above him were like, sorry, man. Like, we're going to, you know, you're not the first one to have tried this.
Exactly.
Jeffrey's tried it too in Argentina, you know, like, Chet Desmond, who got a mention, but I'm surprised didn't pop up anywhere. I mean, I don't know. I guess, I don't know. I have a question on it. This is not more on a story note, but there was a lot of production issues with Fire Walk With Me.
Yeah.
Like, Kyle MacLachlan did not want to reprise his role as Cooper, so that's why they shot the Chet Desmond stuff. And then and then Coop was kind of like a cameo, like an extended cameo in Fire Walk With Me. Do you think that, like, when they did the revival, the return, that it was just like, all right, well, we'll mention him, but we won't show Chet Desmond because he's really not important? Like, what are your thoughts on that? I think that's
exactly what it is. I don't think Chester Desmond was meant to be. I think, you know, those lines were written for Coop in Fire Walk With Me. I don't think he was meant to be this, you know, an important character in the Twin Peaks mythos. I think he became that because of Kyle MacLachlan's kind of reluctance to play the role, at least to the extent that he had done in the series. So I think Chester Desmond is kind of like a throwaway character, to be honest with you. I know some people may not feel that way. When we the thing about Carrie, when he sees Carrie, Laura, she doesn't recognize Twin Peaks. He mentions Leland. She doesn't really seem to recognize Leland, but there is a kind of a hint of recognition when he mentions Sarah. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I even think she even says, "Oh, you know, sad Sarah," something like that. And then when we do get to the house later on, and it's not, you know, obviously the Palmers aren't there, and then we hear what sounds like Sarah's voice saying Laura. And then we get her scream, and then the lights. It
is actually her.
Okay.
My girlfriend pointed it out because I didn't know why that Sarah was credited in the credits of the finale of 18, and it was her scream, and her saying Laura. But I don't know. I mean, it might be one of those things where, because in this time, even though, like, in this time, the essence of Laura and her family, the three of them, you know, Leland was always kind of this bad figure because of Bob and his own personal stuff. That, I don't know, Sarah, like, when he says Sarah, that there's, you know, there's like they say about, you know, a daughter and her mother. There's like this unspoken bond, and clearly both of them had good in them and some kind of mystical power to be into. I don't know. Sarah's gone. Just her whole life has just plummeted down. But I don't know. I mean, there's so many things I could theorize all night. But, like,
because episode 17, you do see Sarah, and she's like, you know, trying to destroy the picture of Sarah Palmer. Yeah, and that's at the point where Twin Peaks is, you know, kind of started, and the murder doesn't happen. You feel like maybe Coop has saved Laura Palmer, and then you get that haunting scene of, you know, Sarah. With the portrait, you know, the picture of Sarah, and she's destroying the frame, and she's trying to, you know, she's jabbing at the picture of Laura Palmer, and I have no idea what's going on there. It's just, but I think in a sense it's probably that this evil entity Judy is in Sarah. I mean, that's the closest thing I could come to a conclusion on. But yeah, it's weird. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff, but I mean, how did that ending kind of? How did you react to that when
Which ending? The Sarah's ending?
No, the actual ending of episode 18 with the Carrie / Laura screaming.
Well, at first, I'll tell you, my first reaction was I was like, you know, he put us on a cliffhanger again. You know, each season has to end on a cliffhanger. But then the more I thought about it, was that it was like a conclusion in a way. You know, that Coop had he didn't fix it. He messed it up more now in like the last hour. He messed it up more than he could have ever, and that there's just some things that are unfixable, and that's how, like, there aren't really happy endings, and that's what, like, David Lynch, all of his films or his other projects, if they have a happy ending, there's always something like tainted on it.
Yeah, no, that's the sense. Like, it's a tragic ending, and it's very unsettling. I mean, that's the only reaction I had is, wow, you know, I just feel unsettled and not sure what happened, or you know how to explain it. But yeah, it's just you thought maybe, I didn't think it was going to have a happy ending, but I thought maybe there would be some kind of resolution or some kind of scene where we see Laura move on, or some kind of reunion with Sarah, but we didn't get that. Yeah. So
yeah, no, I don't know. I mean,
we did get one kind of happy ending with Dougie returning to the Jones house.
Yes, that was nice. That was nice. And I must say, Kyle MacLachlan really did a killer job doing all the different parts of, Dougie, the original Dougie, then Dougie, like Coop as Dougie,
evil Coop, and then the original Coop, Coop woken up, and then the character he plays in episode 18 feels like a whole other character, because he's not the same, Cooper that we kind of.
I mean, the Cooper we know would pull the gun out of the guy's hand, but not shoot the guy in the foot, and then like hold the gun up, and it was just. There was that I was just like, this isn't him. Or even during the sex scene, he kind of had the evil Coop eyes, and then like Diane covered his face, or I'm sorry, Linda covered his face. Yeah,
now they're Richard and Linda. So yeah, I guess it's some kind of alternate timeline. That's the best theory I could come up with, is that what his actions kind of saving Laura kind of made some kind of split with the timeline, and then he also actually broke some kind of barrier when he was driving with Diane on the road. So I
think he's pissing off the people in the people upstairs, like in the convenience store. They're just like, this guy, he won't stop.
Yeah, it's like the Black Lodge entities must be like, this Coop guy is annoying. But yeah, it's hopefully. Do you think we're going to get a season 4, or do you think this is it?
I think if there's a season 4, it would be more in vein of Coop and Laura. I like, or whatever. Carrie is her name. What is the
Carrie Page? Yeah,
Carrie Page. I think that would be fascinating to watch, like a short 8 episodes of that, of him trying to get back, and not as so much having Norma and Ed back, and the double R and things like that, but just going, if the show continued, I think it would have to go down the path of with the timeline and just the lodge and those entities and things like that, as opposed to, like, I don't know, I've read online, people are like, it's almost like the show was like the episodes 1 to 16 was like the Dougie, and Coop out of the lodge, and then the last two are the sequel to Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah, if there is a season 4, and there's another 18 episodes, it wouldn't surprise me if we got 17 episodes of Dougie and the Jones Family, and episode 18 we'll get back to Cooper and Carrie Page and what's going on at the Palmer house and all that stuff. And it just feels like that's a possibility.
But I do have to applaud David Lynch for creating memorable characters for The Return. Like the Mitchum brothers were, I don't want to knock his career. I just never thought Jim Belushi was that good of an actor.
Oh, he's great. He's great.
And he was absolutely wonderful. And then Bushnell, the boss, was great as well. And Naomi Watts.
Naomi Watts was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, she's just... It's interesting because she has said, and Laura Dern said this as well, they were interviewed, I believe, in Hollywood Reporter or Variety about Lynch, and they just said they feel so comfortable with him, they go to, new depths of acting and, emotion that they've never been to before. And that he just brings out something in his writing and his work and the environment he creates. And I think it shows. I mean, Naomi Watts, I started to watch her show on Netflix, Gypsy.
Gypsy, how is that show?
I mean, I couldn't get past the first 20 minutes. It was just, I guess many people couldn't either because it got canceled. But, even though she's great in everything she's in, but when she's in his stuff, it's on a whole new level. And I mean, I forgot that she really got discovered with Mulholland Drive. That's where she originally was cast in that as a pilot, and then it became a movie, and then it blew up. So, I don't know. She was funny. She was a strong-willed character. But I'm also I'm trying to think who else was even new characters that were just creepy, like the Got a Light.
Yeah, the Woodsman. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was. I think. Well, that actor, I think, has a career of playing Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
In tiny roles or nondescript projects and stuff. He was great in that. Even Chad. I mean, Chad. The deputy that is kind of in on it with Richard.
I thought Chad looked like a young Albert Brooks.
Yeah, he does. He does a little bit, and he does the whole crying face, and you want to punch him, but you kind of appreciate that he's part of the scenery now, and until he gets discovered, and he did. I think Lynch did a great job of introducing new characters. I don't know if we got enough of the characters that we wanted to see, from the original, specifically, obviously Audrey, and I would have liked to have seen more of Ben Horne and Ashley Judd is in most of his scenes as well. And I was wondering how that.
I don't even want to go down that path. I think Ashley Judd was completely underused, and I don't even understand why they showed the scene with her and her husband that was dying, and it just, I thought maybe it'd come back, but I think she was in a real thankless role, as David Fincher has said. Then just Ben Horne's new eye candy. I just didn't. I don't know. I just didn't like that. I mean, and I even think Rich. Was it Richard? What's Audrey's son's name again?
Richard, yeah.
Richard. The scene with him and Johnny Horne and the grandmother was so intense with the money.
Yeah.
I mean, that was disturbing because there are, people are in real scenarios like that. There wasn't anything supernatural about that. That was just abuse.
Yeah, he calls her the C word, and he goes off and. I was surprised. I wasn't expecting to see Johnny at all in this, but we did get to see Johnny. There are some fans who are theorizing that Johnny has something to do with the Black Lodge because the bear that he stares at has that light inside of his head. So I don't know. But there's a lot. We could go on and on and on, Zach. you know that. But Anyway, I think this has been a really worthwhile discussion. I think we've covered a lot of the bases. Obviously, there's a lot that we don't know that we obviously could go on and on about. But I think
I think after a rewatch, we could really dive into more. And then the final dossier comes out in October. To have new information as well.
Yeah, definitely. So let's wrap this up. So that's it for us for today for Pop Culture Juke Joint. Tune in next time and we'll have more for you. Thank you, Zach, for joining us. Where can people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Zachary Towlen and my website, zacharytowlen.com.
Great.
And yeah.
And you can follow me at JackLugo1 on Twitter. All right, so thank you for joining us, Zach. I look forward to talking to you again.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thanks, Zach. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Enjoyed this episode of the Pop Culture Juke Joint? Then don't forget to tip the barkeep by subscribing and reviewing us on iTunes and Stitcher. Also, for some sizzling noir tales, head on over to Amazon to check out Anthony's hard-boiled fiction, available